Matthew 9, start in verse 32. It says, "As they went out, behold, they brought him to a dumb man possessed with a devil. And when the devil was cast out, the dumb man spake, and the multitudes marveled, saying, It was never so seen in Israel. But the Pharisees said, He casteth out devils through the prince of the devils. And Jesus went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues, and preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing every sickness and disease among the people. But when he saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion on them, because they fainted, and were scattered abroad as sheep having no shepherd. Then saith he unto his disciples, The harvest is truly plenteous, but the laborers are few. Pray ye therefore the Lord of the harvest, that he will send forth laborers into this harvest." Now you look, and in this time he had chosen his disciples. He knew what was, he knew their character, knew their qualities, knew the good, bad, and the ugly within them. But notice in this particular passage, he had cast out the unclean spirit from the man. The man wasn't able to express himself. He had a spirit, says he, a dumb man possessed with the devil. He wasn't able to express himself, wasn't able to hear, wasn't able to communicate, wasn't able to talk. And then, he was cast out. And instead of understanding that he was the way back to the Father, they said, well, he's working through the devil. And the world is so accustomed to the devil, they always try to give credit to the devil instead of the Most High. They don't understand. But notice this harvest in verse 37. It says, "Then he saith unto the disciples, The harvest is plenteous, but the laborers are few." Now he knew that his disciples were going to labor in this thing. And he knew who would betray him. He knew what was going to happen. But I began to pray on reasons why is the harvest plenteous. Reasons the harvest is plenteous. Because when people are hungry, they go and pick. They go and eat. They go to Moore's Farms and fill up the buckets like we were talking about for church. When people are hungry, they want the food. They don't leave it to waste and rot in the fields. But the sad state of the world is some people just can't let go. Some people cannot let go. Thus, they stay spiritually hungry. They stay spiritually broken. And, they're not willing to let go of what they know. It's like I said last week, they can consume the drug of choice called religion and still the harvest be plenteous, because that doesn't mean you're delivered just because you become a religious person. We need to know what it is to be a righteous person. So why is that harvest plenteous today? Same thing with example with the men of David. They're willing to go behind, why don't you see the men of valor like you used to? Why are men so fearful? Why I heard someone say the other day, they said it's hard to find large quantities of men with a backbone anymore. And that's true. People are afraid. They don't want to stand up. People don't want to do and live in their calling. People would rather just be comfortable eating the food that's brought to them instead of going out there and picking it themselves. So why is the harvest so plenteous? And it reveals some things about ourselves. First thing that came to me is reputation. Some people in this world have established a reputation that they don't want to walk away from. Therefore, they don't want to be laborers. They don't want to be servants, because their reputation, it's like when you see people that are, and it kind of goes with the fact some people have built an empire that they feel it's too great to walk away from. I had a conversation a couple weeks ago with a gentleman, very successful person, and owns a lot of things. And I said, come be with us at the church. And he said, well, I have to go to this church. I can't be seen at church like that. It's a small church, And I said, yeah, that's a reputation. You feel as though you've built a reputation you can't walk away from, because this person needs a lot of prayer and intercession. But again, the enemy doesn't mind you being religious. That's not a problem. He's good at religion. He delves in religion, makes a lot of merchandise off religion. So reputation. It goes back with, people being so fearful to make that first step of change. We all have a reputation. Before I truly decided to allow the Most High to deliver me, I had a reputation too. And sadly enough, I had some days where I'd rather hold on to that reputation of anxiety, depression, fear, addiction, because that's what I knew. I knew my reputation, and I knew how people saw me, and I knew how I saw myself. But like I said last week, we have to distinguish between who we think we are and who we want to be. And it's going to be some pain walking away from that reputation, but many people can't humble themselves to be spiritually delivered from all unclean things in their life because they're too attached to their reputation. You know, you have men, women, some people are so prideful with their worldly existence that they'll die in that pride. Just like some people will never give in. Some people will die in addiction. Some people will die in fear because they don't want to walk away from reputation. You know, a lot of men are very prideful men. It's hard for a lot of, I was talking with some brothers yesterday that, about starting a fellowship group. That's a necessity. We need to fellowship. We need to talk. And that's one thing that we're sharing with each other is people are prideful. It is hard to, say they're wrong. If we're trying to walk in the ways of the Most High and we still deal with pride, people that are not acknowledging His ways certainly deal with it. So some people just won't give in to that initial move. And He doesn't, He doesn't force His way in. He doesn't fear His way in. He gives you will. He gives you free will. So if you're willing to sit right there like a knot on a log, if you're willing to live your life, we can't afford to sit still in this world. There's a lot to be done. There's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of harvest to collect. But if you want to sit still, you can sit still and waste this given opportunity. He'll let you do it. He ain't going to make you a robot. I see a lot of people waste a lot of time and opportunities. There are a lot of people in this world that need to be brought to God, that need to be brought to the Most High, that not brought to an emotional experience and not brought to, a mainstream, but they need a personal experience and a personal move. I've known people that came to church 30, 40, 50 years before they had a personal move because they spent a lot of time attached to that reputation. Second one is tradition. Tradition is another reason that the harvest is plenteous. Because He came to deliver us from these traditions. And I always, when I've mentioned traditions, I always mean, your ways of your family, your ways of yourself. But again, many people say, well, we've always done it this way. Well, have you ever seen the sick healed? Have you ever seen unclean spirits cast out? Have you ever seen people delivered from bondage? Have you ever seen people physically, spiritually, and mentally delivered? Well, if you haven't, then it's time to walk away from those traditions because they're not getting anything done for you, and allow Him to deliver you. But again, you're comfortable with that tradition. So many people, they like to in the shallow end. And a lot of those traditions, what they do is they have ritualistic place in people's lives, but they don't heed to the warnings. It's like those that when we love someone, true love is telling that person, hey, you need help too. You need help too. You need change too. Before we're truly willing to be delivered, we often if you surround yourself with people that only agree with you, that's a problem. Because if I'm wrong sometimes, and people that love me will say, hey, that's wrong. That step you built was crooked. That's just the most recent example I could think of. But tradition removes the warnings, and that's dangerous because you don't realize where you're going when you're not paying attention to those warning signs. Katie and I yesterday, we're coming back from Douglas, and we're going to take a shortcut on a road that went from highway to highway. Now we thought the road was open, but it was truly closed because somebody had taken the road closed sign and moved it to the side. Now, common sense, I was tired, but common sense should have said if there's a road closed sign in the mix, don't go down it. But what do? Katie said, well, maybe it was once closed and now it's open again. It was not once open. It was once closed for a long time because we get to dipping and dabbling in that embankment. There's a ledge and the road's all washed out and it's 5-6 feet deep. And then we finally got to a point to where, we can't go any further. But if we don't back this thing out just right, we're either going to bog down or flip the vehicle. And I said, that, and even in that time, of course, it's her van. So I said, look, you want me to get out and guide or you want to drive? Either one. But I said, spiritually, that's how people are. And I've been that guilty myself, spiritually and mentally, emotionally. We don't see these warning signs, or we see them, but we just don't acknowledge them. And we keep on going down that road. And that road gets more dangerous and more dangerous. It's the same with traditions of the world. It's the same with sin. Like Granddad used to say, it'll take you further than you want to go, keep you longer than you want to stay, and it'll do more damage than you ever thought that would do in your life. But thanks and praise be to the Most High, we made it out. About bogged down a couple times. It was an interesting sight. If somebody had a drone and could have flew that thing down, it would have been something to watch. Just got a little scratch. But, people are like that. We ignore the signs. We ignore the warning signs. And they're there for a reason. They're always there for a reason. But we forget that. Another reason that the harvest is truly plenteous and people have a hard time letting go. It's just like with the invitation, with the wedding. People went about their daily business and they weren't willing to truly give in and attend this wedding, attend this union, attend this ceremony. As people are unable to relate the image of their salvation or destruction to their mirror image. And what I mean by that is, you ever seen, with kids, I don't do the Halloween, all that stuff, but you ever see the kids in the devil costumes and all, it don't never look like them. And if you ever ask a little kid to draw a picture of a devil, he ain't never going to draw himself. People never think the devil looks like them, right? They never think the problem looks as they look. And many a times we need to look in the mirror. Dad used to tell me growing up, when I'd be messing up or doing something, he said, son, look in the mirror. Can't you tell everybody don't act like that? And that's just good truth there. Because oftentimes we need to look in the mirror. We're not willing to take a self-inventory and say, what am I doing? Am I the problem? It's like Wednesday night. I used the example of a little bit of dung can be on the floor and somebody fan it, and then before you know it, everybody's smelling it, and they just know it ain't them. And they're pointing fingers at everybody. But they're not willing to say, hey, it's on my shoe. That's some country analogies. But it's true in this world. They're unable to relate the image, and then oftentimes what we think is our salvation in the situation. We don't dwell with the Most High. We forget about Christ. We forget about these things when we're in a storm, and we think what's going to save us is something that looks like that of man. Instead of man being the destruction, we think that's the salvation. We're so caught up on image. Everywhere you go, you see pictures, supposed pictures of Jesus, and most of the ones you see, if you historically try, he didn't look like that, but people are so caught up on that image. That's that picture. I spoke with an older lady a couple weeks ago, and she said, I got a picture of Jesus I pray to. I said, ma'am, you don't need to be praying in a picture. You need to be praying to the Most High. But we're so caught up on image, that we're not willing to let go. It's aligns with reputation. Another reason that people, are not willing to let go is they're afraid. And that's the main reason. Is they're afraid. They're afraid. Fear, it's like the definition of fear, and I wrote it down, is an unpleasant emotion caused by a belief that someone or something is dangerous. And it also, fear is likely to cause threat or pain in our life. Well, the world has programmed you to believe that true Spirit-filled deliverance could be dangerous. It's programmed you to believe that could cause pain in your life because subconsciously, so many people in through religion, look how many different, there shouldn't be as many doctrines and disciplines and denominations. The church world shouldn't be so divided. Things shouldn't be the way they are. But in and through that programming, people are afraid. Well, it's like that song, Lost in the Presence. If I truly get lost in the presence, you have people that's holding back because they're afraid of that judgment from him. They're afraid of giving in. They're afraid of the change because you truly become different. You don't value the same things. You don't look the same. And you're not bound to irrational fears anymore that's been bestowed upon you when you truly decide to go in that harvest and be a worker. When you decide to rise to the greatest call of being a servant, you're not concerned with the fear of the world at that point. but we have so many attachments and we don't want to let go. We do things that don't make sense. You know, it's like I said with entertainment. People want entertainment. They don't want deliverance most of the time. They'd rather be entertained. That's why we've started thinking that praise and worship is singing and all this stuff. It's not. It's the way you live your life. You praise the Most High with the way you live. Your life is a prayer. It's not all this emotion, and it's not all these things that the modern church world, I call it churchianity, has indoctrinated us to believe. It's the way we live our life. Because you can cry every service and have it, but not be delivered from what's truly needs changing in your life. So we need growth. We need to go be the servants in the harvest. Because if the world was hungry again, those fields would be picked. But it takes work. We don't want to put the work in. We've gotten comfortable. We're afraid of the work. We're afraid of the work it takes. We're afraid our family might judge us. That's why it's so important I really admire and respect families that have raised children and the families are all in the church still. Because you see a lot of families and, their kids become teenagers and they're not in church. Those that, have made it and they're still, I really admire those families because, like I was sharing with a brother yesterday, that takes some work. When their kids are grown, they're still friends in church together and good, because you don't see that as much in the world. And you have a lot of parents that are afraid to truly put that word in their children because they don't want the kids mad. Well, your kids shouldn't be raising you. Sometimes it's like the example of being drugged to church. I remember when I was living at home with Dad, he didn't give me no option. You're going to church. But we live in a world where we're so afraid of judgment. We're afraid of judgment in every aspect. That shouldn't be the case. The Most High has taken the defense of our enemies. We can go, but just like the example with the sons of Ebenezer and the sons of Doe with you can go behind Philistine lines. Because the Most High has a plan. And everybody is here on an assignment. Every single person has an assignment. You can prolong your assignment, but in one way or another, whether it be through obedience or lack of obedience, that assignment is going to have a testimony, going to have an image. Well, I'd rather it be the image of obedience and listening to His word. There's an old proverb I've heard all my life. It says, "Let them who love the dark stay in the dark." You have a lot of people in this world that they're happy right where they are. They don't want to learn. If the things that you're in love with the most, and if the things that you love spending time with the most, don't involve dwelling with the Most High, then we need to question our life. I know people that go to church, but their favorite time of the week, they can't wait for Friday to get here, and they punch out on the time clock and drink them a cold beer. But yet they sitting up deacons. But if that's your favorite time and not dwelling with the Most High, then you need to pray. You need to get back to some of this harvest. If your favorite time is watching a movie of the week that ain't got nothing to do with anything good, you need to pray. If you're still dwelling with a bunch of worldly, I call it lower vibrational things in your life, then we got to get back and we need further deliverance. Further deliverance, because many people, what they're attached to the most and what they love the most has nothing to do with the Most High. And then they wonder why destruction is their life. So many people are miserable, and then as a counselor, I see this all the time, and then we talk about what's in their life, and you got all kind of miserable influences. Misery loves company. See, when we truly understand mental and spiritual warfare, we'll understand greater, and because I was working on a sermon this previous week, removing suppressive and harmful thoughts from our life. When we truly understand what it is to battle mentally, we understand another layer of why the harvest is the way it is. But if mentally if you're afraid to cut all this stuff and cut all the cords in your life, you can't expect nothing but oppression. When you dwell with oppression, when you live with oppression, when you go to bed with oppression and you got oppression on your mind, when you got negative on your mind, you wake up being negative, and you're negative amongst every part of your environment, then what do you expect? You really want to be delivered when you're not doing anything of a delivered nature? When we take on the image of the fall, then we become the fall. And many people aren't trying to be delivered. They've given up. They've given up. We live in a world, like I said, they're afraid, and some people don't know any better. It's sad, but us as the salt and the light, we are to teach. With the way we live our lives, if more people that call themselves believers or church people would teach with their living, then the world would be in a much better place. Because the problem is we want to teach with our mouth, and we go tell people, you should do this, this, and this, and then they're looking back at us saying, hey, you told me to do this, this, and this, but you're doing the same things you're telling me not to do. This has been an age-old problem with church people and non-church people. It's a judgment thing. But when we teach with our lives and the way we live, that's effective. So we need to live, we need to be in that harvest, in that field. We need to let go of what's keeping us from doing the work of the Most High. And as we grow and as we gradually become delivered, there's little things that He does pruning in our lives. He does some pruning. There's constantly, weekly it seems like, in prayer He tells me, hey, do this or don't do that. Or it's a gradual deliverance. You're not perfect the moment you decide to come to that altar and say, hey, I want to be different. I want to be changed. I want to be delivered. That's not what makes you perfect, and you're never going to be perfect. But there's a lot of cleaning up to do, and it's still steady cleaning. Just because you take a bath one time don't mean that you have bathed for the rest of your life. You got to keep on bathing if you want to stay clean. You got to keep on letting Him deliver you. You got to keep on letting Him. But many people, they ain't took a spiritual bath in 20 years. And they wonder why they got a stinking testimony. Because they need deliverance. They need change. They need the dove. They need that dove all on them to clean up that muck and grime of negative attitudes and negative talk and hatred and judgment. And so the harvest is plenty. God's not the problem. It's our disobedience. It's us succumbing to our image, the image of man, the image of the falls, the image of that which is perfect. People coming into agreement with the enemy. And when you really think about, because like I said, God loves us because He keeps sending us messengers. Every generation, look at the prophets, Isaiah, Daniel, you look at the greatest messenger of all, Christ. He keeps sending us messengers. And the world keeps getting tangled up with the enemy. And when you realize how absurd that really is, because the enemy trying to rise up and be equal with the Most High, when you really see God's greatness and His glory, what an absurd thing. So you got to be crazy to fool up with the devil. But He comes to deliver us, and He comes to, He promises peace. Promises peace. So are we willing to take that peace and let go today? Let go of your anger. Let go of your pain. Let go of what's holding you back. Man, let go of that grudge you've been holding. Let go of that negative opinion you had of that brother or sister that you've been letting get all under your skin. Let go of these things that's been bothering you and letting you get all in your feelings. Let go of these things that's been ruining your life. Worry, fear, pain, anger. Anger is the worst one. A lot of days, because it ruins every aspect. It spreads. You ever see the mob mentality of situations? One person get mad, start doing something, and everybody. But that's how mental war works, because mental attacks is based spiritually. Because there's familiar spirits. One person's energy is trying to affect yours. Spirits, everybody has things in their family, things in their closet, things in their background. That's why when we make friendships and alliances with people, that's why when you marry someone, you have to realize the familiar spiritual elements with families and people. But praise God, He comes to deliver us from all that. So we don't have to be on the sidelines holding on to fear and worry and pain. The harvest is plenty. So I encourage us today, what is the harvest? What has He encouraged us to do this week? Because you got a job in the kingdom. You got an assignment. You got to each one reach one and teach one. somebody, something, there's a work that he's encouraged us all to do. If we would do that and dwell with him, we will grow in his peace and love. These altars are open if anyone needs prayer.